Would you create a hierarchy of transport? I mean, walking would be the best in terms of least impact, adverse impact on the environment? If it's
walking and cycling are up there. The reason why researchers are loath to put one ahead of the other is because the bicycle is such a clever invention. We use so little energy to propel it. So somebody who did a very elaborate study, this is almost humorous really, it's kind of easy. What they did was they discovered that for the distance travelled you have to consume less. So you know there's less food growing because the cyclist doesn't need to eat as hearty a meal to move himself or herself 5 kilometers, say, or 8 kilometers,
as opposed to walking.
As opposed to walking, yeah, you have to have a bigger breakfast if you walk 6 kilometers in the morning as compared to cycling. So when you take the food into account, cycling actually comes out better. The food consumed by the commuter.
What's the next?
The next is bus, and European studies are now showing that as well as US studies. The next is bus, undoubtedly. A couple of reasons for that, and also a couple of reasons to know that it'll maintain its lead. It'll maintain its lead because rail. We don't have hybrid rail vehicles yet. We now have hybrid bus vehicles. They use about a third less fuel. They're in London. We've one on trial in Ireland, just in Dublin, just one hybrid electric bus. So they utilise regenerative braking. We'll move towards a situation where we get electric bus. We have electric trucks, so we will get electric bus. And of course that offers you the opportunity to take wind energy that's generated, say, overnight, store it in the vehicle, operate the vehicle, maybe even switch the battery around at lunchtime if you like, put in a new battery, operate the bus for the rest of the day. So there's huge opportunities there. The other difficulty with rail, and don't get me wrong, it's if you want to move enormously high volumes of people, but we rarely do in Ireland. We rarely do. If you needed to move enormously high volumes of people, you would need to turn to rail. But the routes aren't there. What you realise is that if you were just taking any city, but I suppose Dublin gets the most attention, if you were to take any corridor that's currently served by bus and you were to say, well, let's put a rail line on that, you'd actually need people on parallel or nearby bus routes to migrate off those bus routes and onto the rail to make the rail make sense. And then of course you've downgraded the neighbouring bus, and then you've conducted some sort of analysis in isolation. That's what they did for Metro North. I mean, they imagine walking reduces dramatically, but the bus routes reduce dramatically. So you need a bigger subsidy then if you want to maintain those routes on the corridors nearby, or older persons have to walk further to get to the rail line, or else you have to have all sorts of compensatory measures when you put in, because that's our urban density. It's a function of our urban density. We have, depends on what suburb you pick, but it's a bit like America. It's 8 to 14 houses an acre. It's low. It's low by European term.
On intercity travel, is there a preference or hierarchy there between buses and trains, or does that depend on the level of traffic?
The difficulty is that you're never undertaking that analysis for new build. So you're not saying will we build a new railway, because we have the cities are all connected already. We're looking at incremental improvements to the rail network. I mean, the rail network is going to struggle massively over the next 4 to 5 years, maybe longer, because the new motorways have all been opened, and bus operators like between Dublin and Galway are offering very, very low fares. Irish Rail has responded with some 0 or some 1 cent fares on its rail network, but it'll struggle. But to answer your overall question, and on the energy side of things, bus does come next. For rail, when you have an existing network, it does make sense to enhance it. We haven't been doing that, as I say, to preserve patronage on the existing rail network. We'll have to. I think people have, huge doubts about the capacity of the state to keep the existing rail network open.
And now in this hierarchy, we've got walking, cycling, buses, trains, then cars. Yes, and then we've a huge debate even around that, because we've taxis, in excess of 10,000 in Dublin. Some people argue in excess of 12,000.
Then we've got electric vehicles. Where do they fit in? And one of the debates we've been involved with through Planbetter, it was a motoring. I did it for the motoring supplement of the Irish Times newspaper. I wrote a piece in August arguing that we should have an electric car scheme, much like Dublin bikes. Mm-hmm. You might have 600. I propose 600 charge points nationally. And you might have maybe close to 200 in Dublin, so one in every suburb. And then there was going to be, I think it was 15 in Limerick and maybe 20 in Cork and so on. They were divided out among every urban area with more than 17,000 population.
This is a shared car.
Shared car, so
go-car, whatever it's called.
Exactly, electric vehicle. So you go to that point. You'd have made a prior internet booking, or maybe you might arrive by chance. But of course, if you arrive by chance, you risk there would be 3 cars at each location. Paris is doing it, Lyon is doing it, Strasbourg. With the Dublin bike system, it's a managed system, and it works very well. I mean,
do you know how many people are using the bike system?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the.
It's
most
been very successful,
amazingly.
But how many?
So just put some figures on it. The system began with 450 bikes. They anticipated that just under in around 3 people per bike. That's what they reckoned would sign up. So they reckoned 450 bikes, about 1,500 members, either 3-day members or annual members. They're now at in excess of 47,000 members. So we have more than 100 persons signed up per bike.
Do you think that there's any comparability between, say, if you have electric cars with the green grid, that is, you've got renewable energy out there, not running all this electricity off coal or peat, that might be comparable to buses? I mean, if you have an electric car with several people in it, that might become as efficient or as less impacting as buses, or just the numbers in buses are much better?
One of the biggest issues, and people often forget it, is space. A car will spend well over 90% of its life parked. So if you can imagine the microphone as the city, what you have, or the urban area, what you have is, in car-dependent cities, all the vehicles crowd in. So then you need all these car parks, and the car park ruins the city life, and it ruins life on the street. People can't get around because the car is taking the corner, and you pass by a building and nobody's cleared the ice because it's a car park, and the car park owners hasn't got out and cleared the ice. So what we discovered is, as we hollowed out cities for cars, and we did this right throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, as we hollowed out cities to make space for cars, we had less people there, and then we built ring roads around the cities, and then the people started moving from the centre out to the outside, and we lost a lot of city cores, and some of our cities are still in trouble. Their centres, centre of Waterford, centre of Limerick. So we public transport, you remove all that, because the bus moves back out of the city after it's made its journey. You don't have that problem. It comes back out, it works all day long. It doesn't spend 90% of its life parked. It spends, I suppose, 90% of daylight hours moving about, taking people back out of the city, bringing more back in, or in and out of the urban area all the time. So the car difficulty, the car downside, isn't just an energy one. It's a space usage question. It's also a socialization question. On a bus, we interact with the driver, we interact with the fellow passengers. Even if we don't speak in the morning, we still interact. In a car, we're in a bubble, we're in a glass, contained. Our own heating, our own environment, and in our own world in many ways. And that promotion of individual culture is something we can no longer sustain. We do need that greater socialization. We do need that greater contact.